Good morning, Chair. Today we return to hear evidence from the bereaved families of those who died while under the care of trusts in Essex. This morning we will hear from Paul and his wife, Anna Rutledge-Smith. They will be giving evidence about Paul's mother and Anna's mother-in-law, Doris Joyce Smith, who died on the 14th of October 2020, aged 74. Their evidence will be followed by Samantha Rains, who will be giving evidence about her uncle, Keith Stubbings, who died on the 24th of April 2019, aged 61. And then this afternoon, we will hear from Sophia Demoglu. She will be giving evidence about what happened to her mother, Valerie Demoglu, known as Val, who died on the 9th of October 2015, aged 76. Both sessions will include details of the care and treatment received by those who died, and will also include some details of how they died. There may be aspects of today's evidence that are difficult to listen to. Understandably, there may be some for whom it may not be possible to sit through the two sessions. As with other days, anyone in the inquiry room should feel free to leave at any time. May I take this opportunity to remind those engaging with the inquiry that emotional support is available for all who require it. Present here again today are emotional support staff Hestia, an experienced provider of emotional support. They are currently in this hearing room and can be identified by their orange-coloured scarf. There is a private room downstairs where anyone who needs emotional support can talk to the Hestia support staff. If you prefer, you can speak to a member of the inquiry team, and we will put you in touch with the emotional support staff. We are all wearing or have with us purple lanyards. For those following the hearing online, information about the emotional support that is available can be found on the Lampard Inquiry website at lampardinquiry.org.uk. The support tab is near the top right-hand corner. We want everyone engaging in this inquiry in whatever way to feel safe and supported. Chair, we are now ready to hear from our first witnesses this morning, Paul and Anna, who would like to be referred to by their first names, and for Doris to be referred to by her first name. They would both like to affirm, and can we please do that now?
I, Anna Rutledge-Smith, do solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I, Paul Rutledge-Smith, do solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much. Now, we heard you, Paul, speak about your mother Doris at the commemorative hearings in the afternoon of the 23rd of September 2024. You were accompanied then, as you are now, by your wife Anna. Doris died on the 14th of October of 2020 at the age of 74. The 5-year anniversary of her death was therefore just 2 days ago. Doris died at Broomfield Hospital, is that right?
Yeah.
She died following a head injury sustained from a fall whilst at the Ruby ward on the 9th of October of 2020, is that so?
Yes.
Yeah.
And is it your understanding that the Ruby ward is an older inpatient service for people over the age of 65 living with mental ill health? Thank you. Did her care fall under the Essex Partnership University NHS Foundation Trust, known as EPUT?
Yeah.
Now, you've both provided a joint witness statement dated the 1st of September of this year. It's signed by you both. Have you had an opportunity to read it recently?
Yes.
As far as you're aware, is it accurate and correct?
Yes.
Now, there are 7 topics that I hope to cover with you this morning. The first are hospital attendances in May 2020 and the assessment of Doris's mental health in that period. An example that you would like to speak about of what you term good practice, I'd like to talk about that. And by way of background, Doris's care in the community, family engagement in Doris's care, the Falls risk assessment that was undertaken whilst Doris was at the Ruby ward, including the events of the 9th of October 2020. I'd like to ask you about the use of technology, which you refer to in your statement, the inquest and a prevention of future deaths report that was issued by the coroner. And I'd finally like to ask you about recommendations that you invite the chair to consider, which we may also touch upon during the course of your evidence. Now, turning then firstly to, by way of background, in your witness statement, you don't need to go to it if you don't want to, but for those following your witness statement, it's paragraph 4, page 2. You describe your first experience of Doris's mental health decline in 2012, is that right?
Yeah.
And I believe she would have been around 67 years of age at that time, is that correct?
Yeah.
She was referred to EPUT psychiatric services by her general practitioner. She was admitted to the Peterborough Mental Health Ward, an acute adult inpatient service in Clacton-on-Sea. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
In your statement at paragraph 4, page 2, you refer to Landermere as well in the same context. Are they 2 different units or were they the same? Are you able to help at all?
I don't recall that, to be honest. It was so long ago.
She was there for around 6 weeks, is that correct?
Yes.
And there was a decline in 2016 that you refer to at paragraph 5, page 2, so 4 years later, where she was taken to Colchester General Hospital following a psychotic episode and discharged 3 days later. Is that correct?
Yes.
So far as you were aware, are you able to help with why she was discharged?
So she was quite psychotic when she was in the ward, and we went in to visit her, I think, on the 2nd day, and she all of a sudden had come out of this state of psychosis and was very much back to her normal kind of self, and had explained to us that she'd had a lot of hallucinations at the time and they were very scary, but she was quite okay then, wasn't she? So when we spoke to the doctors, they had said that it could have been a UTI, a urinary tract infection. However, when we asked about the urine sample, that was never actually confirmed. It was just kind of, I think, maybe a working diagnosis, so that's what they thought had happened. We didn't really get any more sort of information about that admission, and shortly after she went home and she was back to her normal kind of routine and life.
And so far as you are aware, was there an assessment of her mental health at that stage, or was it the medical condition, the suspected urinary tract infection that was investigated? Yeah,
it was a physical health side of things that were looked at. I don't believe there was any mental health assessment at that time.
Then again, 4 years later, in April of 2020, at paragraph 6, page 3 of your statement, you describe a significant decline in 2020. Were there any early signs that you became aware of?
Yeah, so the early signs were always actually physical. She would start to lose her balance. The way she spoke changed, didn't it? And that was always the warning sign that something wasn't right. And we were noticing that in sort of early spring 2020.
We tried to address it with her to sort of say that we had concerns, but she said she was fine, and we tried to push, but that was kind of as far as we got.
Okay. And so this was, you say, in spring of 2020. Can you remember when you first observed it in 2020?
It probably would have been...
Late March?
Yeah, I would have said March time, because
Yeah.
then she had the fall and fractured her arm in April, so I'd have imagined sort of a little bit before that, probably a month or so.
Can you, to the best of your recollection, help us with how many times that happened?
So how many times what
That
happened?
she had those warning signs of losing her balance, for
So-
example.
On each sort of time when you saw her mental health starting to decline, they were the types of symptoms she would show before then the mental health side of things started to sort of decline.
Did it always happen, or was it just sometimes?
I would say every time that we noticed it, her mental health was on the decline.
Now, in your statement at paragraph 9, page 3, for those following, you give 4 occasions when Doris was taken to hospital in May 2020. So I'm going to summarise those. The first was the 5th of May, and you refer to that at paragraph 9a, page 3. And then the second occasion was on the 7th of May, which you deal with at paragraph 9b on page 4. And then the 22nd of May, which you talk about at paragraph 9e on page 5. And then the 4th occasion on the 23rd of May at paragraph 9f, page 5. In all of those occasions, was she always taken to Colchester General Hospital?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
Can you help us with whether she was taken to hospital on those 4 occasions because of her mental health, or were there other reasons?
So I believe on the first admission on the 5th of May, she was dizzy, she was struggling to stand, and her speech was slurred. She was... I believe at that time she was admitted to a medical ward, and she was very aggressive at that time. We started to get calls, and this was very out of character for her. We were very close with Doris, we spent a lot of time with her, and at that point, that was when she started to become, her character was changing. She became aggressive to us and didn't really want us involved in her care.
And so that brings me on to my next question. You say that she didn't want you involved in her care. That must have been very difficult for you. Were you present on those 4 occasions?
No, this was the point. So the whole way through this, we struggled to be involved because she was so aggressive and had decided she really didn't like Paul and I anymore, which was really, as I said, very out of character for her. And that's how we knew that this wasn't her normal sort of being. And it was very difficult. We couldn't go down there because she would shout at us down the phone. She'd ring us at 2-3 o'clock in the morning when she was at home and just be abusive to us. So it was very difficult to be involved when the mental health services were thinking everything was okay, and we were trying to explain that actually this isn't what she's usually like. They didn't think she had issues with capacity, so therefore they were saying they can't tell us things because they deemed her to have capacity. So it was a really frustrating sort of time for us ultimately.
So we're focusing on May of 2020. Were you her next of kin?
Yeah.
You were, Paul?
I was, yeah.
And were you contacted by the hospital at all?
Didn't we have to ring for an
So
update?
I believe in that first initial admission on the 5th to the 7th of May, we did have some contact from a mental health liaison team, and I believe the home treatment team. I remember speaking to them at length about our concerns about her mental health. They wanted, I think she went home on the 7th of May, and we had told them how concerned we were about her going home because we felt that she needed a lot of support for her to be safe in the community. But they were like, well, she's going to go home, and we kept saying to them we were concerned about it. Hence, she went home on the 7th of May. She was then wandering and aggressive in the little mews where she lived after being discharged. And an ambulance was called. I believe then she went back into the hospital, had a seizure, and then she was admitted again till the 16th of May. Again, I believe we spoke with the discharge team and the home treatment team and before that discharge on the 16th of May. But again, she didn't really want us involved in her care. She was continuing to be aggressive to us, calling us.
So you can recall one occasion where you were contacted and there was a conversation. Can you help us, please, with why you felt the need to speak to the home treatment team that had contacted you? Why was it important for you to speak to them?
I think because of the way she was still being very aggressive to us, so we knew that was very out of character for her. There was a reason for her to be like that. We hadn't done anything per se, so it was sort of, to us, that was clear warning signs that there was something amiss with her mental health, and her mental health was on the decline. And because she didn't want us involved in her care, it then made it difficult for us to try and support her when she was going to be discharged. So I was trying to explain to the mental health teams and the home treatment team, the discharge team, that actually, if she's going to be discharged, she doesn't want anything to do with us, so she doesn't have really anyone else. What support was going to be in place, so even things like shopping, and just making sure that she had that support in the community when she was being discharged, if she wouldn't let us be involved in her care.
And so, just so we're following the chronology here, you mentioned earlier about the decline in 2016. We've touched upon, you mentioned the fracture to the wrist, and that was on the 22nd of April 2020. And then these 4 occasions of admissions in May 2020. So far as you were aware then, there was one conversation as far as you can recall with the home treatment team and the mental health team. Were there any other occasions that you were spoken to that you can recall?
I think on the 21st of May, she was discharged home on the 16th. The 21st of May, she again was very aggressive, and we were having reports from the neighbours and the family. So one of Doris's
great niece.
Yeah, her great niece lived next door to her. So she would report things back to us, so we would know how she was doing.
Okay.
And she had called with concerns about Doris, and over on the 21st of May, I believe there were 2 ambulances called. Both times they were really concerned on the phone to us, but they said they couldn't take her into the hospital. But the home treatment team, they were going to send information to the home treatment team and ask them to visit the next day. And I believe that probably that morning on the 22nd, I remember ringing the home treatment team just to say, this is the situation. We're very concerned. Are you going to visit today? Which they did.
Okay. Let's just break that down slightly then. So turning to the 5th of May at paragraph 9AI of your statement, page 4, she was referred to the mental health liaison team and then later to the older adult home treatment team. Are you aware of, is that the first occasion when you had a conversation with them?
Yes, I believe
Does that help
so.
you in terms of timings?
Yeah,
I know it's difficult.
That would have been the first time.
Okay. And then at paragraph 9b2, you make reference to Doris's discharge, and that you spent a lot of time talking to the home treatment team and the ACE team. I just wonder, can you explain what the ACE team is?
I don't remember, if I'm honest.
And so that was part of that same conversation that you were having with them, and the information that you were providing in terms of her historical background. And then on the 22nd of May, which is her third admission, at paragraph 9E on page 5, she was referred to the mental health team on that occasion for an assessment. As far as you are aware, did that assessment take place? Were you involved at all? Can you remember?
So on the 20th, so she was taken in, I think it was the evening, if I remember. I believe that was a Friday. She was taken in, they kept her in A&E overnight, and then on the 23rd of May, we received a call from the approved mental health practitioner, who I would say was actually very good. I'd like to highlight that as well, that she was very good at her job, and she really took on board our concerns, and really, for the first time in this whole mess, it was the first time that we felt we were actually listened to.
I'm going to come back to that in a moment, but just going back to the 23rd, we had the third admission on the 22nd. Doris was discharged, you say, to the psychiatric team on the 23rd of May at 1:55 in the afternoon, but then went back to hospital the very same day on the 23rd. Is that right?
No, so the 22nd she was in A&E. They did the assessment on the 23rd, and then she was kept sectioned under section 2. And that's when she was transferred to her Heneage ward.
And so you've spoken about this assessment on the 23rd, when Doris was assessed by an advanced mental health practitioner, and in your statement you refer to 2 psychiatrists as well, is that right?
Yes.
Were you present for that assessment?
No, we weren't. This was all during COVID, so there was no way to be present. They just were ringing, so she rang to have a conversation with the family before they went to do the assessment, because they wanted some background before then carrying out a proper mental health assessment. Obviously, if we'd have been allowed to attend, absolutely we would have, but COVID, there was none of that at that time.
And so you were rung on the first occasion before an assessment was undertaken with Doris. And is there anything that you want to say about having been spoken to before an assessment took place?
I think that was, it was a very good thing to do, and I think that's something that definitely should be done, because obviously some people with mental health concerns, they're going to say things that they think someone might want to hear. They're not going to say exactly how they're feeling or what actually has been going on. And by speaking to us, I think the approved mental health practitioner got an understanding of what had been going on in the past month, and how, since sort of March time, that her mental health had declined. And it was good to put in context of what her normal sort of routine and things were, and how this was not what was happening at the moment.
I see. And you mentioned earlier that there was a time where Doris didn't want you involved because she was unwell. Can you, at this stage, can you help us with whether that was still the case, that she didn't want you involved in her care, and that you were still contacted notwithstanding that? Can you just help us understand the context?
I mean, she still was very angry with us, didn't like us, but the hospital obviously felt that they needed some context, and they did contact us.
I see. You mentioned that the earlier assessments you weren't present at, but if you were to try and draw any parallels between the two assessments, the one on the 23rd where you were contacted and the earlier ones in May, what would you say the differences from your perspective were of those mental health assessments?
That we were actually listened to and our concerns were taken on board.
And what about the outcome? So on this occasion, on the 23rd, you mentioned that Doris was sectioned. On the other occasions, what was the outcome?
So the outcome was sort of input from the home treatment team, which would be that they were going to provide her support at home. I just don't think the level of support that was provided was probably adequate for how unwell she was at that time.
So you've told us that Doris was detained under the Mental Health Act on the Heneage ward until the 15th of June 2020. Is that right?
Yes, it is, yeah.
You describe in your statement, paragraph 10, page 6, that her care there was substandard. Why do you say that?
So she had undergone a scan that showed some small vessel ischemia. We kind of queried what that was, and we were just told, oh, it's nothing, it's just a normal part of ageing. And they used kind of this diagnosis of delirium, which they were saying had stemmed from the right wrist injury, and we just didn't believe that that was what was going on, and we tried to raise our concerns. But it just fell on deaf ears, and no one would listen to what we were trying to sort of say.
And just for context here, you say that it fell on deaf ears. What information were you able to provide that a medical practitioner who was meeting her for the first time might not have known?
So I just think that they kept saying, oh, well, her behaviour is very normal, and we just kept trying to explain to them that this wasn't normal for her. They might be seeing this as normal behaviour, but I really felt the need for them to take on what was her normal. I don't believe when you meet someone for the first time that you can say that is their normal behaviour for that person. If you don't know someone, I don't really think you can make that judgment.
And now, just taking things slightly out of turn, I want to just draw upon what you've said there and turn to the recommendations that you invite the chair to make and to consider. This is at page 33, and I'm going to ask if that can be displayed on the screen, please. It's page 33 of your statement, paragraph 128. Thank you very much. We can see there recommendations for change. 128, subsection A, consideration of family views. Can you tell us, please, why is it that you invite the chair to consider this as a potential recommendation?
I mean, I just really feel that it's so important. We just kept being told, oh, well, it's... I don't know how the best way to explain it. I just feel it's a crucial part of the whole assessment. It's not just about that... well, of course it's all about that person, but that person can say anything to anyone and say things you want to hear. Families know, like, the ones closest to me know me the best, and they can tell when something's amiss. And when you're in a state where your mental health's declining, you're not always going to be aware that things are declining. And actually, the ones closest to you are the ones that are going to be able to highlight that. So by taking into consideration the family's views, maybe there would be different treatments and hopefully different outcomes for patients.
One of the further recommendations on that same page, at page 33, subsection B, that you invite the chair to consider is a patient-centred service. Does it flow from what you've just said there about looking at the patient, different treatment options? Is that why you invite that second recommendation? Do you want to say anything further about that?
I think ultimately, patient-centred care, you need to be looking at that person as an individual, and what might work for one person is not necessarily going to work for someone else. So I think it is taking into consideration all factors before looking at best case scenario for that individual.
And your comments about seeking families' views play into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. We can take that down from the screen now. Thank you very much. Going back then to the discharge on the 15th of June of 2020, you explain in your statement, we were at talking about the Heneage ward, and we're on page 6, bottom of page 6, paragraph 14. You say that Doris was under the care or was discharged to the home treatment team. You say that at page 7, the top of page 7, paragraph 15. What was your understanding of the home treatment team? And to put this into its proper context, Doris had already been under the care of the home treatment team after her discharges in May of 2020, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And so this is your second set of experience with the home treatment team. Just explain to us what your expectations were.
I was expecting that we thought they were going to be going in regularly, checking she was okay. Was she taking her medications? Was she looking after herself? Was she, personal care, cooking, cleaning? Was she coping at home? That was my understanding, that they would be sort of checking up on her regularly and making sure she was safe to be at home.
And she had a care coordinator, is that right?
She did.
And I want to ask you then about those instances of care and focus on the hospital admissions that arose from it. So in terms of time, we're in July of 2020. There was an incident on the 3rd of August of 2020 on bottom of page 7, paragraph 17, where you say at this stage Doris's balance had worsened, her mental health was deteriorating, and she'd fallen against a neighbour's car, damaging it. So again, off balance and being wobbly as you describe it in the statement. I want to then move on in time to the 8th of August, which on page 9, bottom of page 9, paragraph 28, there was a visit by the care coordinator who had been visiting during this period of time. But on this occasion, there was an incident when a security officer was involved with Doris. Could you tell us about that incident?
So we received a call from a security officer at Morrison's to say that Doris had been caught shoplifting, which is like unbelievably out of character for her. This is the woman that when Paul was a child walked out with some loo rolls on her trolley accidentally and went back in to pay for them when she realised. She's a very honest woman. She would never do that. So we had this phone call from the security officer in Morrison's. Again, at this time, Doris wasn't really speaking with us, didn't want us involved. Also, she lived in Clapton, we live in Thurrock. It was quite a way. So I spoke to the security officer and explained that she'd shoplifted and that a couple of days prior to that she had also been caught shoplifting and she was going to be banned from the shop. She could see that Doris was very unwell and was very concerned for her. So
Can I just ask you to pause there?
Yeah.
You're speaking quite fast here, and I'm
Oh.
conscious that we've got somebody who's transcribing.
Okay.
You haven't done anything wrong at all, but I just wonder whether we could slow down slightly. And I'm trying to take a note as
Yeah.
well, and I can't write that quickly.
That's
So
fine.
there was an incident at Morrison's.
Yeah.
She'd been there the day before.
I think a couple of days prior, yeah.
And this was now an occasion where the security guard had got involved. What were you told about that incident?
She tried to walk out with the whole trolley of shopping. So she'd done her weekly shopping and then just walked out the door with it.
And extra things. Apparently she said she was trying to get things for nurses in the NHS because they needed to be given things for how well they were doing in COVID, and, you know, it was those kinds of things.
And as a result of the security guard intervening, how did they get involved with Doris? How did they manage that situation?
We actually saw body cam footage, didn't we, from the two security guards.
It was absolutely
where
heartbreaking.
they're stopping her, yeah.
So they stopped her. The lady was very... There was a woman security officer, and she had realised, she was like, something's not right here. Hence, she'd managed to get our number from Doris's phone to ring us. And she said to us, "Where are you?" We explained that we live quite a way away. She said, would it be okay if I took her home to make sure she's okay? We, of course, said, yes, that's absolutely fine.
So they actually took her home.
They took her home.
And did they speak to you and confirm that she had got home? And what did they tell you?
So they had gone into the house, and the house was there was blood everywhere, and it was sort of very untidy. Again, this is really out of her character. Doris's house was like, you could eat dinner off the floor. When she was well, I'd never ever seen such a clean house in all my life, and. It was very untidy, wasn't it? There was blood everywhere. So the security officer decided that something wasn't right. And so she called the police, and she called the ambulance service.
Okay.
So she's to be congratulated.
Yeah, she was great.
Yeah.
She was brilliant.
And just wanting the sort of your understanding then that the care coordinator had been visiting Doris during this period, July and August, as you detail in your statement. Yet we've got to a situation here by the 8th of August where a security guard attends her home and is so concerned that they call an ambulance for her to go to hospital. All right. Do you have anything that you want to say with regards to that and sort of the observations that were being kept on her during that July and early August period?
I would say that, again, with the care coordinator, I used to ring regularly because we had concerns about Doris. Again, the care coordinator, when I rang, I could almost hear her eyes rolling, because I could just tell in how she was that she's like, oh no, not her again. Because I did call all the time because I wanted to prevent deterioration in her mental health, and she just didn't listen. I find it the most frustrating thing. I do pay a lot of blame on her because I just think if she'd listened to us and taken on board what we'd said, would she have not been admitted and then ultimately not had that fatal fall and died?
Are you all right to carry on?
I'm fine. It just really, really makes me angry.
Okay.
So all I want is people to listen to families. I feel it's so important.
Okay. Would you like to take a break? Should we take a break?
No, I'm fine.
You say that back to this incident in August, she went to CGH A&E. I'm assuming that's Colchester
General Hospital.
General Hospital. Okay. And did you, as a result of that incident and the interactions that you had with the security guard, do anything? Did you make contact with the hospital?
Yeah, again, we called the A&E because we were concerned that the same thing would happen that happened last, that they wouldn't sort of like take on board what we were saying. I got told that they would listen. I was told that she wouldn't. I was like, please don't discharge her without properly assessing. And they assured me that wouldn't happen. But guess what? They did.
I think, is that the night she's taken home really late?
Yeah, she was
Yeah,
taken
that's
home really,
the
really
evening
late.
we find out that she's taken home by hospital transport very late, maybe 11 midnight in a hospital gown and left on a doorstep.
Then they promised if she was anything would happen, that they would contact us. And again, they didn't. We didn't even know she was home until one of the neighbours rang to say, do you know your mum's home? And we were like, no, what? So we then visited her the next day, even though she was really still quite angry with us. I mean.
And so when you visited her the next day, what did you observe about her and her condition?
It was so we actually went with a couple of friends because we didn't want to upset her too much. So what we did was our friend Sue came with us because she liked Sue. And Sue went in to see her, and then Paul came
outside.
up. You went in and
Yeah.
you're probably better because I stayed away we didn't want both of us to be there to upset her.
Well, we just walked into a house of chaos. She hadn't eaten properly. There was rotting rubbish in the hallway.
There were maggots on the floor. She was ravenous. We ended up.
And this is the house that the care coordinator has just recently visited and said everything looks fine.
She was absolutely starving. So she really wanted a fillet of fish from McDonald's. So we went and got it for her. And it was like watching someone who hadn't eaten for a week. She literally was absolutely ravenous.
I want to turn then to events on the 13th of August. You talk about this at page 11, paragraph 39 of your statement. You say there that there was a plan for Doris to be referred to the home treatment team and that she was referred to crisis support. Is that correct? Did that happen? Do you know?
Yeah, as far as we're aware, yes, that did happen.
And then at the bottom of page 11, you talk about 6 days later, on the 21st of August 2020, an incident where Doris was running around the mews, banging on doors and shouting that she needed her medication. You describe over the page on page 12 that she was hysterical and was taken to hospital at that time. So this was on the 21st, and just to help you in terms of the timing and the chronology then, at paragraph 42, you say that there was a mental health act assessment and she was detained under section 2 at the Ruby ward on the 22nd of August 2020, is that correct?
Yes.
And whilst she was there, she was assessed by 2 psychiatrists and an advanced mental health practitioner, is that correct?
Yeah, it was the same one. And she actually, I remember her words, she said, what have they not been doing in the community for her to be back here?
And this was a time where you became aware of her diagnosis. Was this the first time that you became aware she had a formal diagnosis?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first diagnosis was, high anxiety, depression with psychotic features. I think that then changed later down the line because in the first admission, it was delirium due to the fractured wrist. That's what they'd put it down to, for the first admission.
And so Doris stayed at the Ruby ward. I want to move on to our next topic about the falls and falls risk assessments. Given the background that you've both described of Doris being wobbly, losing her balance, neighbours reporting that she had fallen, and then there being your observation that there was a decline in her mental health. When she attended the Ruby ward, was there a falls risk assessment as far as you were aware?
Well, now I didn't know at the time. I would have just thought it would have been done with her vulnerability and how at risk she was of falling. However, what we then have realised is that actually the falls risk assessment wasn't done until the 2nd of September.
And just in terms of helping you, I appreciate this was some time ago, there was a serious incident report, was there?
Yes.
And there was a root cause analysis report, is that right?
Yes, there was.
And there was also an inquest, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And I mentioned at the outset a prevention of future deaths report as well that was issued by the coroner. I wonder if it helps you in terms of framing where we are and remembering the details. If I could invite page 20 of your statement, please, to be put up on the screen, it may help us orientate where we are. So paragraph 83, page 20 for those following. This here are specific recommendations that were made by a physiotherapist. And I'm going to read out, these were recommendations that were made by a nursing staff. And so to orientate us in time, Doris attended, as we know, into the Ruby ward on the 22nd. The 22nd was the assessment. And then 23rd, she was also there, no risk assessment. It was on the 2nd of September that risk assessment took place. And there were a number of instances where she'd had unwitnessed falls, is that right?
Yes, there were.
And I think if we can break down the falls in this way, 1st of October there was a fall, and on that occasion it was an unwitnessed fall whilst she was on the Ruby ward, is that right?
Yes.
And there was a palpable mass on her head and she was vomiting, is that right?
As far as I'm aware, yes.
Okay. I'm just going to ask that does stay up on the screen for the moment, but just to help you, we're at paragraph 70 of page 17 of your statement. It says here in your statement that she was a high risk of falls. She was elderly, frail, and had been losing weight due to lack of food and fluid intake. Obviously, she was in hospital at this time. So can you just help us a little bit about what was going on in terms of her weight management and how her nutrition was at that time?
So she was so unwell that she wasn't eating and she wasn't drinking. And again, like Doris was a very, very petite lady.
A very
petite lady, very, very. She was small and petite. But boy, did she have an appetite. She could eat more than I could. And during her stay, she just wasn't interested in food. Although this was kind of COVID times, in the end, they started to let us come to visit. We went to visit her on the ward a couple of times. And we did take different foods that they thought she might like, things high calories, to try and encourage her to eat, didn't she?
Yeah.
A couple of times we even got like McDonald's delivered to the ward to try and encourage her to eat. But she really, I think she was so mentally unwell that she just didn't want to eat. She was also, I remember she was, she'd been prescribed nutritional, sort of like Calagen, which is like shots of nutritional.
Supplements.
Yeah, exactly.
So she'd been prescribed those. Notwithstanding that, you described she was losing weight and she was frail at that time. So there was the fall on the 1st of October. You describe the circumstances of that. She was taken to the accident and emergency department where a CT scan was performed. And then if we go to the 8th of October, which you describe at paragraph 77, page 18 of your statement, there was another unwitnessed fall on this occasion when she was walking to the bathroom. This time she hit her head, hurting her back. That was a second unwitnessed fall that she'd suffered in the space of 8 days. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you, on this occasion, you say at paragraph 78, she wasn't taken, as far as you were aware, she wasn't taken to the accident and emergency department for a CT scan. And you talk here at paragraph 78 about level 2 observations and observations. Appreciating it was some time ago, were you able to help us with what your understanding was about when she was to be observed at that time?
So I can't remember the levels of observations because it was so long ago, but my understanding is that around policy following a head injury is that the person needs to have 24-hour neuro observations after the fall, which weren't followed here. And also, I believe the policy also states that they should have had a CT scan, and on the 8th there was a palpable lump, yet she wasn't taken for a CT scan.
I think on this occasion, the 8th, she hit her head and back, and there was a 2 centimetre lump on her head. And then you mention in this paragraph about AT, assisted technology, I think. Can you explain to us what your understanding of the use of technology in Doris's care was around this time in October of 2020?
So we'd been advised that because she was at high risk of falls and because of the falling, that she would have been put in this room that was assistive technology. And our understanding was that it would alert staff if she got up from her chair. So if she was in the room on her own and she got up, there would be some kind of alarm go off, and then they would go to ensure that she was safe when she was mobilising. And we also thought that that would be on all of the time. However, I don't believe that was the case.
Okay. And we can, we'll come back to the assisted...
Sorry, could I just ask about that?
Yeah.
You were told, so did you have a sort of formal conversation about that and whether you consented to that happening?
It was one of the nurses had called and we were just discussing around falls. I think we'd ordered some new, we were trying to just find any way to reduce the risk. We'd ordered some new slippers, and then they'd mentioned about this assistive technology, and did we think this was a good idea? And we were, all for this. Anything we can do to prevent her falling, absolutely.
And can you recall whether you were told in specific terms that if the alarm went off, someone would come?
Yes, that's what we were told. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes. And can we please have up on the screen your recommendations, because you make, this is at page 34 of your statement, paragraph 128C. You invite the chair to consider assistive technology as one of your recommendations, and what you say here is that so far as you understood it to be, the assisted technology had not been turned on the 8th of October. and after Doris's second unwitnessed fall. And do you want to talk through the recommendations that you invite the chair there to make?
Do you want to go for it? I think it's... I don't know. I mean, yeah. It's really that we'd like to promote widespread use in all older adult frailty units in the UK where falls risks of patients are usually very high. Urge wards to ensure any decisions regarding assistive technology are communicated to all relevant staff at pivotal times throughout the day, such as handover and safety briefings and huddles. Implore with wards that where AT is an option, it must be fully functional, and when repairs need to be made, they must be done. And then high-risk patients must be moved to rooms where the AT is functioning. I just think it's a really important part if you can prevent any falls, and that's quite an easy way without having someone sitting with someone 24 hours a day of doing it. And that people respond to the alerts ultimately, because there's no point having it and then not listening to when the alarms go off.
And just help us then, you mentioned earlier the assistive technology, so far as you understood it, was on Doris's chair, so that would have been a trigger if she'd fallen then. Yeah. Was it used any more widely in her room, do you know at all?
I believe there are pressure mats
on the bed
by the bed,
well. Yeah.
So that if she got up, it was either, I believe it's where you'd like swing your legs round to get out of bed, that there was a pressure mat there that would have then gone off.
Okay. And so we go back. I'm going to ask you then about the 8th that we've talked about, the fall on the 8th. Did you have a conversation with the Ruby ward about that fall? Yes,
I believe that the ward manager had called us to say that she'd hit her head. I believe that was the morning of the 9th we were called to say it had happened the previous day, but there had not been any need for her to go to the general hospital. And that at that point, that's when we realised that that the assisted technology hadn't been used and that they were about to turn it on.
And she was seen on the 9th by a physiotherapist. So going back then to page 20, if we could have that back up, page 20, paragraph 83, thank you. We can see there some recommendations that were made for the nursing staff. So A, to continue to use assisted technology in Doris's room. B, to encourage Doris to elevate both lower limbs on a footstool and to elevate her foot when she's in a lying position. C, relating to her limbs again, and then D, for a helmet, orthotics, for a helmet to minimise the head injury due to falls risk. And then E, for all transfers, indoor mobility, nursing staff to encourage Doris to transfer and mobilise safely with the aid of a wheeled Zimmer frame with close supervision of one staff. And then F, for outdoor mobility, nursing staff to mobilise Doris outdoors in a wheelchair. You say here that on the 9th, Doris suffered a fatal fall. Can you explain whether any of these recommendations, to the best of your knowledge, were implemented?
Well, I would imagine not, because if she'd have got up, which she'd got up for her chair and walked, the assisted technology alarm should have gone off, so someone should have been alerted.
Wasn't she found by another patient?
Yeah. Also, she was supposed to have close supervision of one staff to mobilise. That also hadn't happened. So 2 things to try and prevent the falls hadn't happened.
And if we then turn, I'm sorry to jump about your witness statement, but if we can turn to, before we come to the prevention of future deaths, page 26 of your statement. Page 26, paragraph 109. You explain the section of the conclusion of the coroner that Doris sustained a fatal fall. I'm paraphrasing here, but it goes on to say at paragraph page 27 over the page. The fall's risk assessment was only completed 12 days after Doris's admission onto the Ruby ward. Under policy guidelines and procedures, it should have been completed within 24 hours after admission by a nurse. It was finally completed by a senior healthcare assistant instead, but had an incomplete medical history. Subsequent errors and omissions with regard to the updates of the fall's risk assessment, no evidence of the physiotherapist's advice of close monitoring during mobilising being implemented by staff, confusion regarding observation levels, for example 1, 2 or 3, and inadequate frequency of both neurological and ward observations. And then a lengthy section 4, I'm just going to pick out and draw out some of those aspects on this page at 27, where it's recorded, had Doris been observed and monitored as she should have been, this is under section 4, at the fall on the 9th of October 2020 would either have been avoided or there would have been a staff member present to break her fall. Had the fall been broken, it is likely that Doris would have avoided injury or her injuries would have been less severe. The fall suffered by Doris caused her to suffer that fatal head injury, a traumatic subarachnoid hemorrhage, which led to her death on the 14th of October. The report then goes on to make other observations about evidence that was heard at inconsistencies between staff on the Ruby ward as to which were the correct levels of observations, and all of these factors led to the incorrect observation of Doris, which contributed to the circumstances leading to her death. So I just wonder then, did you attend the inquest?
Yes, we did.
Was there anything that arose from that inquest that you wanted to make reference to that I haven't drawn out from this report?
Yeah, so there's a reference, is it in this evidence somewhere, that they were short-staffed, but in the inquest we were told the opposite because the ward next to the ward my mum was in was closed due to COVID, and we were told in the inquest that they were actually overstaffed on this ward. So that's one of the important parts.
I think one of the statements from one of the staff mentions that they were worried about having sort of 1-to-1 with Doris with her mobilising because of staff numbers, and then which we thought, okay, that's quite feasible because they probably don't have enough staff to do that. However, when we were at the inquest, it kind of, one of the staff was like, oh no, we weren't short-staffed.
That was actually a question from the coroner to the ward manager.
Yeah.
And that was her answer.
No, we had surplus of staff because the other ward was closed, so we had 2 ward staff in one ward.
I've mentioned now that a prevention of future deaths report was made and published on the Courts and Tribunals Judiciary website on the 7th of March 2023. This is at paragraph 110, page 28, and at paragraph 111, page 28, If we could just have that displayed, please. Page 28, paragraph 111. It sets out there what that prevention of future deaths report refers to. I wonder, I'm not going to ask you anything further about that, but is there anything that you wanted to say about the prevention of future deaths report?
No.
Okay, I'd like to ask you then about there was a serious incident report and a root cause analysis report, and at page 30 of your statement, if we could have that up on screen, please. At paragraph 121, you list the first recommendation from that report, and then over the page at page 31, recommendation 2, recommendation 3 and recommendation 4. What was your observation of that root cause analysis report? Was it a report, for example, that you welcomed?
To be honest, no.
Was there a reason why?
Anything the trust do, it's just a paperwork tick boxing exercise, it's just, we need to be shown to make changes, but do these changes actually happen? I don't believe they do. So doing a root cause analysis and a serious investigation, is that really going to make any changes? It doesn't appear to have, so what's the point in it?
And why do you say that it doesn't appear to have made any changes? What makes you say that?
Because failings continue to happen.
I'd like to turn to page 34, if we could have that up on screen, page 34 of your statement, and it's paragraph 128D. Thank you. You have there as one of your final recommendations the investigation report follow-up. You say there that we concur with the root cause analysis investigator about the report and its findings and the investigation, but there should also be deadlines put in place in all cases for those targeted to complete and to respond to an investigator's recommendations. This will ensure those responsible are learning lessons and making changes accordingly. Is there anything else that you want to add to that?
I don't think so.
Now, those are all the questions that I have for you, Paul and Anna. Can I just check, Chair, do you have any questions for them?
Thank you.
All right. Well, in those circumstances, I'm going to thank you very much. We now have a photograph that you have picked that you would like to show of Doris, and I'm just going to ask if we can have that displayed now, please. Thank you very much. Now, we're going to have a 10-minute break now to see if there are any other additional questions for you. But in the event that there aren't any, I'm going to thank you very much now for providing your witness statement. We do recognise that it is difficult to relive and to repeat instances. So thank you for providing your witness statement, for coming and giving your evidence today. Appreciate it will have been difficult for you both. So can I thank you very much for doing that. And if there aren't any questions, that will be the end of your evidence and you're free to leave.
And I'd like to add my thanks very much
you.
indeed. It's extremely important to us, so thank you.
Thank you very much. So Chair, we'll take a 10-minute break.
10 minutes.
Good morning, Chair. We will now hear evidence from Samantha Rains in relation to her uncle, Keith Stubbings. Please, can the witness be sworn?
This is just for you to read. You can stay seated. Okay. I, Samantha Rains, do solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. Please, can you state your full name for the record?
Samantha Rains.
You are the niece of Keith Stubbings, who
Correct.
died on the 24th of April 2019 at the age of 61.
Correct.
You would like me to refer to you throughout your evidence as Sam, is that right?
Yes, that's fine.
And to your uncle Keith, your uncle as Keith, is that
Yes, yeah.
right? And is it right that you are supported today by your husband Harry, who sits next to you?
Yes.
By way of background, the inquiry sent a request for evidence to you under Rule 9 of the Inquiry Rules on the 2nd of May this year. And in response to that request, and following a meeting with members of the inquiry team on the 7th of May this year, you've provided a witness statement to the inquiry, is that right?
That's correct.
And you should have in front of you a copy of that witness statement that's 13 pages long.
Yes.
At page 13, the final page of your statement, you will see that it is dated the 2nd of July of this year. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And just above the date, you made a statement of truth and then signed the witness statement on that same page.
Yes,
Have you had an opportunity to read the statement through?
I have.
And is that document true and accurate to the best of your knowledge and belief?
It is, yes.
As you know, that witness statement will therefore stand as your evidence to the inquiry. And although I am going to ask you some questions about the witness statement, I'm not going to take you through it line by line or ask you to read it out.
Okay.
Please do be assured, however, that the chair and the inquiry team have read and considered everything you say in that statement very carefully, and it will form part of the body of evidence on which this inquiry will rely.
Okay.
I'd also like to acknowledge that you have, in November last year, provided a commemorative and impact account about Keith, and that was read for you.
Yes.
The inquiry is extremely grateful for that evidence, as well as the evidence you're giving today.
Okay.
I would like to remind you that I will not be asking you to name any individual staff member today, so please try not to do so. And if at any point you require a break, please do bring that to my attention.
Will do.
Please do try and keep your voice as loud as you comfortably can so that your answers are captured on the transcript.
Okay.
Your evidence will focus on your concerns in relation to Keith's care and treatment under the care of the Essex Partnership University NHS Foundation Trust, or EPUT.
Okay.
Before we go through your evidence, I want to make clear that you have prepared your witness statement to give as full an account as you can, and that it is based on your recollection of what you saw and experienced at the time, is that right?
That's correct.
And what you were told by Keith, is that right?
Correct.
As well as impressions your mother and your aunt had at the time as well, is that
Correct, yes.
It is also based, do I understand correctly, on your consideration of some documents that you had not seen at the time, but you have seen more recently.
That's correct.
And in particular, you refer in your witness statement to paragraph 26 to having seen EPUT's root cause analysis investigation report, as well as care notes obtained via a subject access request. Is that right?
That's correct.
I now want to summarise a timeline of key dates taken from your witness statement, and please do stop me if I summarise anything incorrectly or there is something that you want to add.
Okay.
Please do feel free to refer to your statement as you wish throughout my questions.
Okay.
So, taking all of these matters from the information you've provided to us in your witness statement, in 1981, when Keith was 24 years old, his father died unexpectedly in a road traffic accident. And it is your belief and that of your family that it was after this tragic event that Keith started to struggle with his mental health.
That's correct.
Keith would often get quite anxious, and over time, Keith's struggles with his mental health became more apparent.
Yes.
He was worrying about others having road traffic accidents and expressing that he was not worthy of love.
Yes.
In 1999 or 2000, when Keith was around 42 or 43 years old, he had a breakdown.
Yes, correct.
He was diagnosed with depression by his GP and was prescribed propranolol.
Correct.
In early 2003, Keith suffered another breakdown. At this point, Keith's wife contacted your family to ask for help.
Yes, yeah.
Shortly thereafter, Keith was referred by his GP to a senior house officer at the Linden Centre in Chelmsford.
Correct.
He was assessed and diagnosed with endogenous depression and anxiety and referred for cognitive behavioural therapy, family therapy with his wife, behavioural psychotherapy and anger management classes.
Correct.
Between 2003 and 2006, Keith attended therapy sessions at the Linden Centre and the Chelmsford and Essex Centre.
Correct.
During this period, you understand that Keith's mental health improved.
Yes.
Around 2006, Keith's therapy sessions were discontinued.
Yes.
Keith contacted a psychiatric nurse to ask whether he could continue with the therapy sessions, as he felt that they were doing him good, but was instead given a number to call when he was feeling down.
That's correct.
For a few years, Keith pulled away from the family, who wanted to respect his desire to deal with things on his own, and over that period, you were not in close contact with him, is that right?
That's correct.
And is it right that this period that you refer to in your statement was around 2007 to 2018?
That's correct, yes.
And during this period, as far as you can recall, you understand that Keith continued to take medication and have mental health and medication reviews, but did not otherwise engage with mental health services.
That's correct.
You describe him as becoming increasingly isolated and limiting who he would speak to and what he would say.
Yes.
In around October 2018, Keith's marriage ended.
Yes.
He moved out of the marital home and began living alone in rented accommodation.
Yes.
Between the end of 2018 and early 2019, Keith became very unwell.
Yes.
Keith's antidepressant medication was due to be reviewed in February 2019, but no review took place.
That's correct.
On the 26th of March 2019, Keith attempted to take his own life by making a laceration to his right wrist.
Correct, yeah.
He was found in his kitchen and taken to the A&E department at Broomfield Hospital.
That's correct.
He was then admitted to the Mayflower ward, which was a surgical unit, and on the 28th of March 2019, he underwent surgery to repair the damage caused to his arm.
That's correct.
On the 29th of March, Keith was then assessed by the mental health liaison team at Broomfield Hospital.
Correct.
Following the assessment, the decision was made not to admit Keith for mental health treatment and instead to refer him for urgent brief intervention through the community-based access and assessment team.
That's correct, yes.
Keith wished to remain at hospital but was discharged from the Mayflower ward following treatment of his physical injuries that evening,
Yes.
walking 3 miles alone to get home.
Yes.
And no family members were notified of his discharge.
No, none of us.
On the 31st of March, your mother contacted the access and assessment team as she was concerned about Keith.
Correct, yes.
The access and assessment team then called Keith, and when he did not answer, they called the police to request a welfare check.
Correct.
When the police declined to assist on the basis that there was no immediate risk to life, a nurse from AAT visited Keith at home.
Correct.
He eventually came to the door and their meeting was recorded as a successful contact.
That's correct.
On the 2nd of April, your mother again contacted the access and assessment team, who then called Keith 5 times without receiving a response.
Correct.
On the 3rd of April, following 2 further attempts to call Keith, a nurse from the access and assessment team visited him at home.
Yes.
During the visit, Keith consented to a referral to the access and assessment team employment specialist, agreed to receive further support from access and assessment team via the brief intervention, and that he would benefit from a medication review.
Yes, correct.
On the 9th of April, after several unsuccessful calls, an access and assessment team nurse visited Keith at home.
Yes.
On the 16th of April, the same access and assessment team nurse visited Keith, who again reported that he felt better but remained concerned about his job and impending divorce.
Yes, that's correct.
It was agreed that Keith would contact his work to discuss an occupational health referral and seek legal advice in respect of his divorce.
Yes, that's correct, but he wasn't able to do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
On the 23rd of April, an occupational therapist called and left a message for Keith.
Yes.
On the same day, Keith told you that a call with his manager at work had been not very positive.
Yes.
On the 24th of April, the following day, Keith died by suicide.
Correct.
On that same day, an Access and Assessment Team nurse had called Keith unsuccessfully and then made a home visit, but got no response and took no further action.
Correct.
Thank you. Now we've set out the timeline of Keith's involvement with Essex Mental Health Services, I'd like to ask you some questions regarding your concerns.
Yes.
I'm going to go through these thematically, and I'd like to start by asking you about your concerns in relation to Keith's mental health assessment and the decision to discharge him on the 29th of March 2019.
Yes, so none of us were contacted, not his daughter or his wife at the time. And there was no communication between the hospital and the mental health team to say that they were discharging him. They just said they needed the bed and let him go, walk home.
And so he's assessed on the 29th, having undergone surgery the previous day.
Yes, yeah.
To repair the damage to his arm.
Yes.
In terms of that assessment, is it right that none of the family was present, but you understand from the records you've seen that he reported feeling depressed due to the breakdown of his marriage?
Yes.
And stated that the decision to harm himself had been a moment of madness.
Exactly, yes.
And assured the team that it would never happen again.
Yes.
The decision was made not to admit him and instead to refer him for what you understand to be urgent brief intervention.
Correct.
Through the community-based access and assessment team.
Yes.
You explain in your statement that you would have expected any mental health team assessment to involve contact with Keith's family, is that right?
Yes.
And as far as you are aware, were any efforts made to contact your family during the assessment and before Keith left hospital?
No attempt to contact any of us, no.
Do you know if efforts were made to contact Keith's ex-wife during the assessment or his daughter?
No.
No, you don't know, or you
no
believe...
attempts, no.
In terms of the decision not to admit Keith for inpatient mental health treatment, as you express it in the statement, it's your view that Keith should have been admitted and that the system failed by not doing so.
Yes.
Why is it that you say that?
Because it was quite obvious to me to harm yourself in that way and to express to nurses that he felt down and he felt depressed, but he felt safe within a hospital environment. To me, it made sense for him to be looked after by the mental health team and to be admitted.
And you say about what Keith expressed at the time, is it right that the decision to discharge him was made despite his request to remain in hospital to receive treatment for his mental ill health?
Yeah, he asked. He said he felt safe there.
And is that your understanding from the medical records or
Yes.
what you were told by Keith thereafter?
Both. Keith told me as well that he felt safe there.
Are you able to say more in terms of what Keith told you when he was discharged?
He just said they discharged me, but I was getting food and I was warm and there was people looking after me. And I asked to stay, but they needed the bed.
Did he comment at all on what was written in the records, that it was a moment of madness and that it wouldn't happen again? Did he refer to that?
He never mentioned that to me. He used to say to me that basically he'd done it wrong. What he did, he'd done it wrong.
What did he mean by that?
His intention was he didn't want to be here, I think. And
So that rather contradicts
Yes.
what he told them, or
Yes,
is
yes.
recorded as telling
yes, exactly.
them. Thank you.
And so when Keith was discharged, you've mentioned that he understood that that was because of a shortage of beds.
That's what he told me he was told, yes.
And that is in relation to the Mayflower
Yes.
ward, as you
Yes.
understand it.
Yeah.
So the surgical ward that he was on.
Yes.
And so at this point, as you set out in your statement, Keith was then discharged at around 6:30 p.m. that evening, is that right?
Yes, correct.
From the records you have seen, is there any indication that there was a discussion between the Mayflower ward and the mental health liaison team, or within the relevant teams, of the timing or steps to be taken ahead of Keith's discharge?
Nothing that I've seen. Later on at the inquest at the Linden Centre, they said they hadn't had communication from the hospital that they would discharge him.
And so this is the Mayflower ward not contacting the access and assessment
Yes.
team,
Yes.
whose care he was going to be under in the
Yes.
community.
Yeah.
And you've explained already that you were not informed of Keith's discharge, nor to your knowledge were any other members of the family,
No, nobody.
nor his ex-wife or,
No.
or his
Not his daughter either, no.
And you explain in the statement that this meant that no arrangements could be made for Keith to be collected from the hospital.
Yep.
And are you able to say something about what the consequence was for Keith, that effectively he was left to make his own way home? Is that right?
Yes, he walked about 3 miles from the hospital to his home along very busy roads. He also walked along a river. So, you know, to me, to be in that state of mind, that was incredibly dangerous for him. You know, a few days before, he's done that to his arm with the intention, I see it, as ending his life. But then he was allowed to walk along a very busy road and along beside a river, and he could have done anything.
And if a call had been made to you, a member of the family, or to his ex-wife or to his daughter,
Yes.
what would have happened?
Oh, we would have gone and collected him. The family home is 2 minutes from the hospital, literally around the corner.
Is it right that your family had been trying to contact Keith at this point whilst he was in hospital?
Yes.
And you explain in your statement that when your mother called and got through to the Mayflower ward, the ward staff were unable to give much information due to confidentiality reasons, but they confirmed that Keith had attended the hospital and since been discharged.
That's correct.
And is it right that your mother then phoned the access and assessment team at the Linden Centre
Yes.
and was told at that point that they were not aware that Keith had been discharged?
Yes, that's correct.
And as you say, and that it also was referred to at the inquest, but that there appeared to have been no communication between the Mayflower ward and the community mental health team before Keith
Yeah. No
took this journey on his own.
Yeah, no communication at all.
I want to turn now to ask you some questions about the community care that Keith received. Yes, of course.
One question about the family and what the hospital may or may not have known about the family. Did Keith say anything about whether he had given permission for the hospital to speak to the family?
He never mentioned that to me. His daughter had been into the hospital the day before to visit him.
Yes.
So they were aware that there was a daughter.
Who cared and
Yeah.
was there? Yeah.
But as far as I'm aware, they never asked him, or he never said.
And you're not aware of any instructions he may have given not to contact the family?
No, I'm not aware of that, no.
Thank you.
Thank you. From your knowledge at the time, or from the records you have seen, are you aware of any records to indicate a discussion with Keith about sharing information with his family?
Nothing. He never mentioned anything to me or any other family member that visited, and I haven't seen anything in any of the notes that I requested.
Thank you. In terms of the treatment Keith was to receive, which you understand to have been urgent brief intervention through the community-based access and assessment team, was it your impression when speaking to Keith after his discharge that he understood what this meant, what he could expect to receive in terms of care and support?
He didn't understand anything. He just wasn't in that frame of mind. He just laid on a settee all day with a quilt over him. He wasn't aware of anything happening around him. He would worry about stuff. So for anyone to give him an instruction or tell him what may be happening, it's like he couldn't comprehend it. He just, yeah.
And so is it right that you never saw any kind of discharge plan or written information to explain what the intervention and support he was going to receive would be?
No, I never saw nothing from the mental health side, but obviously just discharge appointments from the hospital. That's all I ever saw.
So what you saw was in relation to his physical...
For the wound.
Physical treatment and recovery rather than anything in relation to his
nothing
mental
else.
health.
No, yeah, only that.
Did you speak to Keith, you or other family members, speak to Keith about what the expectation was and what the treatment he was due to receive would look like and the support?
We did, but again, he just didn't understand it. He didn't understand. I think maybe he may have said something like, possibly, oh, they'll come round or something. But yeah, he didn't really understand what they had told him.
Following Keith's discharge from hospital, you explained that your family all visited and supported Keith.
Yes, yes.
Prior to that, and earlier in your statement, you described Keith as an extremely private person and explained that he'd previously pulled away from the family.
Yes, yes.
So there was that period of time when you weren't in close contact with him.
Yeah, he didn't like to be seen as a burden, and that's within his medical notes, and he's also said that to me as well. He didn't want to come across as a burden to the family.
And so what was the position or state of contact at the point he went into hospital on the 26th of March?
Messages, but then when we knew that he'd been discharged, we just went to the house where he was living.
And so effectively, once the family knew he was in crisis and there had been
yes,
this...
straight away.
And in terms of the contact that there was following his discharge on the 29th of March, you explain in your statement that the family all visited and supported Keith.
Yes.
Are you able to tell us more about the regularity of that, who was involved and what that looked like on a day-to-day basis?
Yes, so we kind of done it in sort of shifts. So it was myself or my husband or my auntie and her husband or my mum. So his two sisters, myself and my husband. We would sort of go around every day, 2-3 times a day, to make sure he's eating, to try and get him to do things, just basic life stuff, do washing, have a shower, that kind of thing. It was a struggle. It was hard. But yeah, we were there majority of the time.
And you explain in your statement that you were particularly focused on getting him out of the house to attend appointments. Is that right?
Yes, to get him to the hospital and, go to the bank and go to the GP. But it was very hard to get him out of the front door.
And in terms of your assessment, your experience of Keith's behaviour and mood over the month between his mental health assessment and his death, you explained that Keith had trouble sleeping at night and was sleeping throughout the day. I think you referred to being under a blanket.
He would sleep downstairs. He didn't like going upstairs. So he'd have a big quilt on the sofa in the day, sleep the majority of the day, never ate, unless we took stuff round, like picky stuff for him to eat. Unkempt. He was always a very presentable person, but he just looked completely different. Completely different.
Turning to the support that Keith was receiving from the Access and Assessment team, it's right, you set out in your statement, that the team visited and telephoned Keith on several occasions between his discharge from hospital on the 29th of March and his death on the 24th of April.
Yes.
Is it right that their attendances is something you've largely pieced together from records?
Yes.
And those are limited to those which we outlined in the chronology earlier?
Yes, correct.
So effectively, a coming to the door on the 31st of March, as you see it, it's described as a successful contact, visits on the 3rd, 9th and 16th of April.
Yes.
And then a failed attempt to visit him on the 24th, which is the day that Keith died.
Yes, that's correct.
Given your own visits to Keith and how he appeared, you set out in your statement that you felt it must have been immediately evident to the Access and Assessment team staff that Keith was not well and that they should have done more to help him.
Yes, I do, definitely.
One of the concerns that you express about the Access and Assessment team contact with Keith was that it appeared to occur at random,
Yes.
with no consistency, and that Keith was never sure whether or when somebody would be coming to see him.
Yes, we never knew. It could be the morning, the afternoon. They never sort of wrote anything down for a family member to see, to say, we're going to come out at this day. Nothing.
And so was this something that you discussed with Keith or other family members at the time, or something you've understood subsequently from the medical notes?
Yes. It's from the notes, and also we just never saw anyone. There was just never, we were there the majority of the time, but yeah.
And the impression you got, as you express it in your statement, was that visits by the Access and Assessment team to Keith were only prompted by your mother calling to register her concern for Keith's well-being.
Yes, that's correct.
You say that you wonder whether, if your mother had not been making those calls, Keith would have received any support at all.
Yeah, I do believe that, yeah. I don't think he would have.
And again, is this something that you appreciated at the time, or in fact something you've seen from the records and now noting when those meetings and attendances
Yes, I think
were?
from the records, because obviously we weren't informed at the time of when they've been or where they've attempted to see him. So yeah, looking back when I've requested all the records, you can see the dates and the information they've provided.
Yes. You've set out in your statement very helpfully a summary of the contact with Keith, including information you've since learnt from his care notes and EPUT's root cause analysis investigation report. And I want to look specifically at the visit from an Access and Assessment team nurse on the 3rd of April, and then a visit on the 16th of April.
Okay.
This is at paragraph 29 of your statement, which is on page 7, I believe. And you outline here the visit on the 3rd of April, which followed a call to the Access and Assessment team from your mother the day
Yes.
before, raising concerns that he had no support and the family thought he was at risk.
Yes.
So although what you've described is not much communication coming the other way,
Yes.
is it your evidence that communication was going to the Access and Assessment team from family?
Yes, because we were so worried about him.
So, and that was through calls, principally from your mother, is
Yes.
that right?
Yes.
To the Linden Centre,
Yes.
or to the office there,
Yes, yes.
to communicate the level of risk and concern that you had.
Completely, yes.
Now, following a call from your mother, there was then a difficulty in getting hold of Keith by the phone, and when they couldn't get hold of Keith, there was a visit arranged to his home address on the 3rd of April.
Yes, correct.
From what you've seen in the records, you understand that from the records, all the curtains were closed and there was no initial response from Keith, is that right?
Yes, yeah.
Keith eventually appeared at an upstairs window and opened the back door, appearing unkempt.
Yes.
Now, you've already explained that you didn't know when they were coming and you didn't see them. Is it right that on the visit of the 3rd of April, that is the one occasion where, in fact, your aunt happened to attend at the same time, and therefore she saw the interaction between Keith and the Access and Assessment team?
Yes, she did. It was literally by chance. She'd gone round to be with him, and yes, they turned up. So she was there.
And so your assessment, is it fair to say, of how the Access and Assessment team staff interacted with Keith is based on what your aunt has told you about her impression of
Yes.
this experience?
Yes,
Of course, as well, the records and the other
Yes.
things you've seen
of
subsequently.
course.
You understand that during the visit, Keith reported feeling low and worthless, and accepted that his current thinking put him at risk of suicide.
Yes.
And is that something that your aunt communicated or you've seen in the records?
My aunt, yeah.
He also expressed that he was worried about his marriage breakdown, his finances, potentially losing his job as a train driver because of his recent injury,
Yes.
and his wife and daughter moving out of the area to live with his wife's new partner. Is that
Yes, that's correct.
right? You set out in your statement that your aunt found the Access and Assessment team nurse was not welcoming of her input. Is that right?
That's correct.
And you give a particular example, which was, is that right, communicated to you by your aunt?
Yes.
Of a nurse smirking when your aunt asked about the possibility of Keith returning to work.
That's correct, yes. That was his biggest worry, was going back to work. and that was brought up into the conversation, and the member just sort of smirked and went, sort of, made a face, which upset him massively.
But his worry in the sense that he wanted to go back.
He wanted to go back, but in his eyes, he didn't think he was ever going to go back. So that was kind of one of his, that and the divorce, that was the biggest worry. And they just advised, with the divorce, they just said, when the envelope comes through the letterbox, make sure someone's with you. And that's how that was left.
And you contrast in your statement that experience of the smirk from the nurse attending
Yes.
with an experience you had when you took Keith to receive treatment for his physical recovery.
Yes.
And you describe there a very different experience. This is at paragraph 33 of your statement, where you describe taking Keith to the Broomfield Hospital for an outpatient follow-up check on how his wound was healing.
Yes.
And again, there is a focus on this issue of whether or not Keith can return to work.
Yes.
And you say to mitigate Keith's growing concern about his job, you asked the nurse whether she could provide a letter confirming that he was okay to return to work.
That's correct.
The nurse was extremely empathetic and said that she would do so long as I promised that Keith was getting help.
That's correct.
And you cite that as an example of the kind of care that you see as positive and supportive
Yes.
and appropriate, is that
Yes. Yes.
right? You say here you were grateful for her concern and in all of your interactions with EPUT felt that she was the only person to be kind, considerate and sympathetic to Keith's situation.
That is correct.
Now we'll come on to, and it's right to say that your interactions with EPUT principally followed Keith's death.
Yes.
We'll come on to that. But this was the example, you would say, of what should have happened in terms of interactions.
Yeah, exactly. She showed a lot of empathy for my uncle and spent time talking to him, and then obviously talking to me.
Turning back to the 3rd of April, during that visit from the Access and Assessment Team nurse, Keith agreed, is this right, that he could benefit from someone to talk to and consented to a referral to the Access and Assessment Team employment specialist.
Yes.
And it was also agreed that Keith would receive further support from the Access and Assessment Team via brief intervention.
Yes.
Again, is it your understanding that it was not clear to Keith or your aunt what this brief intervention would involve?
Yeah, there was no sort of explanation. Obviously, my uncle wouldn't have been able to comprehend what they were saying at that time. But my auntie said there was very lack of information around that. They just sort of said it and that was kind of it. No more than that.
And did your aunt ask about that and what that amounted to?
I'm not sure. She never mentioned that to me. She just said that obviously after the way that they dealt with him when he asked about his job, you're then consoling him, and he was the priority at that time. So she's not mentioned that she mentioned it, but I think she was more looking after him.
So her focus was elsewhere and on consoling Keith at that point.
Yeah. But no information was left or anything for anyone else to read or anything.
And you've mentioned the importance of Keith's work to him and his fear about never being able to go back to that work.
Yes.
And we've seen here clearly that there was a referral to the employment specialist agreed to by Keith.
Yes.
From the records you've seen, from your knowledge, do you know what, if any, support Keith received from any employment specialist before his death?
Nothing.
Have you seen anything in the records to indicate that the referral was made and acted upon?
Not that I've seen in the records, no.
Do you feel that there was an appreciation by the staff attending on that date of the significance of Keith's employment as a risk factor for him, as something that was really important to him at that time and a focus of his concerns?
No, I don't think they took that into consideration at all. No, their whole reaction was as if it came across. So my auntie said that, basically you won't, after what you've done to your arm, you won't drive a train again. That's the impression my auntie took from the response. So no, they weren't understanding to his concern.
You were obviously visiting very regularly at the time, your husband as well, and
Yes.
other family members. Did Keith speak to you or other family members about his concerns about work?
He did, and I contacted his employer at one point and spoke to them because he was worrying so much about it. And they were lovely. And I went back to tell him and said, you know, they understand. I didn't go into detail about what happened, but they understand, they wish you well. But again, he couldn't comprehend that. He couldn't take that someone was being nice to him, basically.
Yes. I want to turn now to your paragraph 32, which relates to the 16th of April visit from an access and assessment team nurse at home. As he had on the 9th of April visit, you understand that Keith again reported that he felt better, but remained concerned about his job and impending divorce.
Yes, yes.
And he was particularly concerned about the divorce papers arriving in the post. Is that right?
Yes.
And is that something you know from what you directly heard from Keith?
Yes, all the time, all the time.
So whilst you were visiting him over this period, this was something he was raising regularly?
Yes, yeah, he was just so worried about them, coming through the letterbox.
And is it your understanding from the notes of that meeting that he was advised to have a friend or family member with him when he opened the divorce papers?
Yes.
And is it right that you understand that he denied ever feeling suicidal and expressed that he had no thoughts or plans to harm himself in that meeting as it's recorded?
As I've seen it recorded, yes.
You understand from Keith's care note that actions were agreed for him to take forward. Again, this is from the note, is that right?
Yes, yes.
And these included contacting his work to discuss an occupational health referral and seeking legal advice in respect of his divorce.
Yes, I've seen that in the notes, and they said that to him, and again, he wasn't able to do those kind of things.
What was your memory at this point? So we're moving forward to the 16th of April, so midway through that month when you'll have been visiting regularly. What was your memory of how Keith was managing day-to-day tasks at this time?
He wasn't managing at all. He wasn't managing. He wasn't having showers. He wasn't washing his clothes. He wasn't eating. He didn't leave the house unless, by chance, I was able to get him out for some reason. He just wasn't coping at all.
And you say in your statement at that paragraph 32 that in those circumstances, you do not think it was helpful or a good use of time for him to be told to action certain things and then left to do them by himself.
Yeah, he was incapable to do them by himself.
Had that been something which was an action raised with you as family members, is that something you feel you could have supported him to do?
Definitely, because we were working on, I was with him doing so much, trying to change his GP, trying to get him medication reviews, things like that. So I definitely would have helped him, most definitely.
Would it have been obvious if you'd seen Keith at that stage that he was struggling with...
I think so.
You mentioned his clothes not being washed.
Yes.
Him not... Yeah.
Yeah, the house was untidy, the curtains were pulled all the time.
Yes.
Where he would lay, the quilt laid on the sofa. And it was apparent that's where he was sleeping in the day. So I think even if you didn't know him as a stranger, you would pick up those signs, definitely.
Thank you.
In terms of the limitations of the support he was being given by Access and Assessment, the team, is it right that at this time Keith's mobile phone was broken?
It was, yes.
And so there were instances where the team were unable to reach him by telephone,
Yes.
which we see in the records. But can you say whether or not that was because he wasn't picking up or because, in fact, his phone wasn't working at that point?
It wasn't working because we had to go and get him a new phone, me and my auntie. We had to try and get him into town to get him a new phone.
And can you recall when in the month that happened?
Probably mid-April time that happened. But again, I think my mum, from what my mum told me, she did contact them to say his phone wasn't working.
So you had done what you could to communicate the fact that calling him was not going to be of any use because he effectively...
His phone was
couldn't answer.
broken, yes.
I want to turn now to the 23rd of April, and if it assists, this is your paragraph 35. And is it right, you've seen from the records that an occupational therapist called Keith on that date and left a message?
Yes, I've seen that in the records, yes.
And that is the same date that you spoke to Keith for the last time.
Correct.
and he told you that he'd had a call with his manager at work and it had been not very positive.
Yes.
The following day, on the 24th of April, the day that Keith died by suicide, an access and assessment team nurse had attempted to call Keith, as you see it from the records.
Yes.
And again, as you see it from the records, is this right, later made a home visit but was unable to make contact.
Yes, that's correct.
At that point, is it your understanding that this was the first time that they'd made a home visit and been unable to actually make contact with him?
I believe so, yes. Only from what I've seen in the records, obviously, but yeah, I believe so.
So from the records, is it your understanding that although on previous occasions he hadn't come down immediately and it may have taken some time, this was the only occasion where he didn't come down at all?
There was the other occasion where they contacted the police, who said they were unable. Yeah, but that's the part.
So this may be yes, and in fact,
Yes.
Is it right that when they contacted the police and asked them to attend, they had said that they wouldn't attend because there wasn't an immediate risk to life?
Yes, that's correct.
That was the understanding that you have, again, from the records?
From the records, yes.
Now, after the access and assessment team nurse attended Keith's address on the 24th and got no answer, is it your understanding that she did not call the police and that there was no contact made to any family members?
That's correct, yeah, no, nothing. No contact.
And again, are you aware of any efforts made to call Keith's ex-wife or his daughter?
No, nothing. Nothing at all.
On that same date, the 24th of April, is it right that you as family members were also trying to contact Keith?
Yes, my husband was trying through the day, and then when I came home from work that day, my husband said, "Have you spoken to him?" Obviously I hadn't, so my husband went straight back round to the house.
And when there was no response from Keith, is it right that your husband broke through the door and got into the address and found Keith at that stage?
Yes, he went to the back door and looked through and saw that the front door was locked from the inside and his phones were on the side. My husband then phoned me and I just said, "Just get in," and which is what he done. And then, yes, found him.
Thank you. I want to move to discuss a little bit more about the extent and quality of interactions between AAT staff and your family. We've covered this largely already, but I want to just clarify, is it right that on the 2nd of April, after visiting Keith the previous day, when he seemed very unwell and dishevelled, your mother called the access and assessment team to find out what had been put in place for him moving forwards?
Yes. My mum was in the job role when she used to be working in a residential home, so she had dealings with mental health side with the residents, so she knew what to do and what to say. So my mum was the main person by phone contacting them.
And the access and assessment team or the Linden staff that she spoke to, is it right that they told her that they would not give your mother information about Keith without Keith's express consent?
Yes.
But agreed to call and check in with Keith?
Yes, correct.
And is your understanding that they were effectively agreeing to speak to Keith separately and find out whether or not he was okay given the concerns your mother had raised?
Yes, that's correct.
And this is something you understand from discussions with your mother, is that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
As far as you are aware, and from the records you've seen and knowledge you have, did any member of the Access and Assessment Team staff or Linden Centre staff talk to Keith about whether he would consent to share information following that discussion with your mother where they said, we have to check about consent?
Yeah, no, discussions with Keith, he never mentioned that to me. I've never seen anything in any of the records.
And was information sharing ever discussed with your family, as far as you're aware?
No, nothing.
Were any steps taken at any stage to engage with your family and involve you in decisions regarding Keith's care?
No, nothing at all. Not even on the day my auntie was there when they turned up.
You've described family, and particularly your mother, raising concerns about Keith being at risk in your statement. And so what, if anything, were your family told by the Access and Assessment Team, or indeed the Linden Centre when your mother was calling, about a crisis or safety plan for Keith? So by this I mean what measures to take if concerns over his risk escalated.
They didn't really inform her. All they said is that they will call round. Is it cold call or something like that? That's
Yes.
what they would do. They would go and check on his welfare.
So the only connection point, as you understood it as a family, is this right, was that you could call the Linden Centre
Yes.
and notify about your concerns for them to deal with separately.
Yes.
So effectively you were providing familial support and then they were providing separate support, but there was no connection between the two.
No, and they only provided that when we called, when we sort of prompted them.
And in terms of the value placed on the information that your family had to share about Keith, was it your impression, again, from the calls your mother made or from your aunt's attendance, that this was valued by the Access and Assessment Team staff that the family members interacted with?
No, not really. No, we never sort of felt supported or that it was going to be effective in any way, really.
And so is it right to say that you feel that there was no opportunity for you to have any meaningful involvement with Keith's care?
No opportunity.
If we look at your paragraph 46 of your statement, which is at page 12, where you set out some reflections, you express your belief there that services need to work with families to make decisions about appropriate mental health care and treatment.
Correct.
And that you as a family were not engaged with in a meaningful way.
That's correct.
And you say that at the very least, services must make sure that family members are aware of the care plan in place.
Yes.
Which was not the case in Keith's case.
No, nothing. Never saw anything or heard anything.
And you also say there that a family support network should be utilised to ensure a patient's safety.
Correct.
And you point to the fact that Keith's family could have been a means of contacting Keith when he was not picking up calls from AAT,
Yes.
the Access and Assessment Team.
Yes.
And you also specifically point to the family being able to have collected Keith from Broomfield Hospital to avoid him walking home vulnerable and alone.
Yes, definitely.
And we've already discussed what you describe as what perhaps good communication with family members and patients would look like.
Yes.
By way of your example of the outpatient appointment.
Yes.
And you describe it there that Keith was reluctant to attend, but put immediately at ease by the nurse who saw him.
He was. It was hard to get him to that appointment, but I managed to get him there. And yes, as soon as this lovely nurse was talking to him, you could see he was just at ease.
And against this, you've described your aunt's experience of the Access and Assessment Team nurse who was visiting Keith on the 3rd of April as unwelcoming and insensitive.
Yes. Yeah,
and that
completely.
was what your aunt communicated to you, is that right?
Yes, completely.
And as a consequence of your family's experience, you recommend at paragraph 47, directly following, that staff are trained in how to appropriately talk to patients and their family at what is such a difficult time.
Correct, definitely.
I want to look back quickly at paragraph 43, and here we see the root cause analysis investigation report that you've referenced here, which I understand you've had sight of, and from that you have seen that it recommended that a patient's next of kin
Yes.
should be confirmed at their initial assessment and updated in the patient records.
Yes.
To the best of your understanding, what was the position with Keith's next of kin at that time when he went into hospital, and indeed thereafter until the point of his death? Do you know who was listed as his next
It was
of kin?
his wife at the time, but even though the relationship is quite strained, she had no communication from anyone. She told me that.
And is it right that, in fact, when Keith had been found following his suicide attempt on the 26th of March, he was found by one of his ex-wife's friends
Yes.
who contacted his ex-wife,
Yes.
who contacted you as family?
Yes, that's
So
correct.
there was that connection, is it right?
Yeah.
The ex-wife knowing
Yeah.
to contact the family
Yes.
if there was a concern.
Yes, and with next to kin, the week that my uncle passed, I was planning, I had a GP appointment to take him to review his medication.
Yes.
And then he was quite happy for me to then step in as kind of next of kin. But obviously that didn't happen.
I want to turn to the topic of medication briefly, which you raise considerable concerns in relation to, and that is in particular the responsibility for monitoring Keith's antidepressant medication.
Yes.
You understand that Keith had been prescribed the antidepressant medication sertraline in 2018.
Yes, that's correct.
And that this medication was due to be reviewed in February of 2019.
Correct.
As far as you are aware, his medication was not discussed with him when he was admitted to the Mayflower ward in March 2019, is that right?
That's correct.
And you are not aware of any reviews of his medication having been conducted?
No awareness. No, he never mentioned anything. In his notes, nothing either.
And at the time, Keith had recently moved address,
Yes.
come out of the marital home, is that right?
That's
As rented
correct.
accommodation. And is it right that you were helping him to register with a new GP surgery?
Yes.
He had an appointment scheduled for the 29th of March, at which time he was, of course, yet to be discharged from the
Yes.
Mayflower ward.
Yes.
You then managed to book an appointment for the 25th of April.
With a different surgery.
Yes.
Because the surgery he was with refused to see him because he was out of the area
I see.
when I contacted them about the medication.
So he misses that appointment,
Yes.
and then effectively you are waiting for him to be registered, enrolled at the
Yes.
new surgery, and then you have a new appointment for the 25th of April, so more than a month later.
Yes.
Or a month later. You express in your statement, and if it assists you, this is at paragraph 37 of your statement, which is on page 9, that in the meantime, you had assumed that the Access and Assessment team would be monitoring his medication.
That's correct. Yeah, I would assume that.
And you say that you anticipated this would include checking in to make sure Keith was taking his medication.
Correct.
And you assumed that this would form an important part of any welfare check.
Yes, definitely.
Were the Access and Assessment team staff aware, as far as you can say, that Keith did not currently have a GP? He was effectively between GPs at this point.
I don't even think they acknowledged it. There's nothing within the records of even talking to him about a GP.
And as far as you are aware, beyond getting Keith's agreement that he could benefit from a medication review when the Access and Assessment team nurse visited him on the 3rd of April, did the staff speak to Keith about his medication at any other time?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
And not that you've seen in the records?
Not in the records, no.
And as far as you are aware, were there any arrangements made to facilitate a review of Keith's medication from what you've seen of the records, from what you know?
No, nothing.
And so, in effect, it's your understanding that no medication review was facilitated either during Keith's time at hospital or following his discharge?
That's correct. And I think because the people that would visit him were of a different banding as well, because within his notes it keeps saying that they request a higher band. So whether they were in the position to be able to do that, I'm not sure.
So your question is, you're not sure whether, in fact, those people who were visiting him, they might have been able to recommend something for him,
Yes.
but they might not have been able to authorise that.
That's correct, because in the notes it kept saying we need a higher band in to visit. So
And it may be that that's something which a medication review also required a higher banding for. You
Yes.
can't say. But
No, yeah.
the tenor of the notes gives you that impression.
yes, and it's mentioned a few times, but yet no higher banding visited him.
Thank you. You understand from your mother that she found a large supply of Keith's medication in a cupboard.
She did.
And when asked, Keith admitted that he had not been taking it because he did not feel that it was working at that time.
Yes, that's correct.
Are you able to say whether the Access and Assessment Access and Assessment team staff were aware that Keith had not been taking his medication?
I believe my mum did say that on a phone call to them after she'd found it in the cupboard. Because obviously we were very worried what he had around him for his safety. And that's when she found the medication.
And are you able to say at what point in the month that took place, what time she will have communicated that?
I would say probably quite early on, early April.
Thank you. You say at that paragraph 37 that you are left wondering whether there would have been a different outcome had the access and assessment team paid more attention to Keith's medication.
That's correct, yes.
And you understand, is that right, from the root cause analysis investigation report, that they recommended, following a review of Keith's case, that a medication/medical review should be facilitated as soon as it is identified as being required.
Yes.
And if this is not possible, for reasons to be clearly documented in the patient's records.
That's correct.
And you set out at paragraph 48, again in your reflections section on page 12, that you consider that it is essential that medication reviews are carried out without delay and
Yes.
considered as part of any welfare checks in the community.
Yes, I do, yes.
I want to turn now to your concerns regarding the investigations following Keith's death.
Okay.
Your family was asked by the Linden Centre to be involved in an investigation into Keith's death. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah, by phone call. They phoned up.
And is it right that you agreed to act as the main point of contact for the family?
Yes, correct.
You describe in your statement, and this section on what took place after Keith's death starts at paragraph 39 on page 10. You describe in your statement at page 40 there that you had a meeting with the family liaison officer at the Linden Centre,
Correct.
which you understood was for the family liaison officer to introduce himself and for you to ask questions.
Yes, that's correct.
What was your experience of that meeting?
I walked into the Linden Centre and was asked to wait in the foyer with lots of patients walking in and out, which after losing my uncle just recently as such, was very hard to see. I sat there for about 10 minutes and then this man appeared, took me through to a quieter room and we just chatted. He basically said to me, we could have brought your uncle here, but he would have still done the same thing, which I found very harsh, very cold thing to hear. Then as we were sitting there talking, he sort of said to me, how do you feel about your uncle? How do you feel about what's happened? And I said, I'm very proud of him. Which he sort of, his response was just proud, sort of, you know, querying what I'm saying, really. And then an alarm went off and he said, do you know what that is? I said, no. He said, that's someone trying to harm themselves. So that was the initial meeting. And then as I left, I just walked back to my car just crying. Yeah.
Thank you. You described the meeting in your statement feeling like a box-ticking exercise.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
And you described the family liaison officer that you dealt with as
Yes.
insensitive and the wrong person for that kind of role.
Yes, yes.
Is it right, as you set out in your statement, that but for being in the process of putting Keith to rest at that time, you would have made a formal complaint about that?
I would have, yes.
Would it be fair to say that your capacity at that time was taken up with grieving for and making arrangements for your Uncle Keith?
Yes, definitely, definitely.
At paragraph 41, you describe a meeting that you and your aunt attended in around June 2019 at the Linden Centre.
Yes.
With a consultant psychiatrist,
Yes.
the head of occupational therapy, and the same family liaison
Yes.
officer. And this was, you say in your statement, to discuss the care and treatment Keith had received.
Yes.
And you acknowledge in that that you and your aunt were able to express how you felt let down.
Yes.
And that your input was welcomed.
Yes.
But is it right that nevertheless you found those at the meeting to be unapproachable, cold and unfriendly?
Very much so. Very much so.
And looking back, are you able to help as to what it was that made you feel that way in the meeting?
Again, it felt just like ticking the box. They listened, but there wasn't, not a lot of empathy came across. yeah, just 3 men there, and it was just very cold, not friendly, not welcoming, no sort of expressing, you know, they're sorry and things like that for losing my uncle. There was just nothing. It was just an unfriendly experience.
Yes. And you then received a copy of the EPUT root cause analysis investigation report, is that
Yes,
right?
that's correct.
And when you received it, included numerous inaccuracies,
Yes.
which you then raised with the family liaison officer,
Yes.
and you were then sent a corrected copy, is that right?
That's correct. And that meeting as well was also held in the Linden Centre, which, again, that didn't help. Just seeing other patients struggling, it just wasn't, in my eyes, it wasn't the correct location to hold something sensitive, a sensitive meeting like that.
Yes. And in that report, which you refer to in your statement, at paragraph 43, the Trust acknowledged failings in Keith's care and
Yes.
identified where things could have been done differently.
Yes,
And it made the 2 recommendations which we've discussed already.
yes.
After the investigation concluded in July 2019, you did not receive any further communication from the family liaison officer or EPUT more widely, is that right?
No, nothing after that.
Keith's final inquest hearing took place in the November of
Yes.
2019, reaching a conclusion of suicide with the cause of death recorded as hanging. Is that your
Yes,
understanding?
correct.
And is it right that you attended that inquest?
Yes, Keith's family attended that. So as a family, we went to that.
And are you able to say more about your experience of attending that inquest?
That process was very well dealt with. The lady that I had, she was very accommodating, and I had communications with her even after the inquest. I requested to see pictures and things like that, and she arranged that I could do that with her, and she brought support in for me, and they were just lovely. Really, really lovely people, very accommodating, and helped us through a tough time.
And I think in your statement you say it's somebody in the coronial office. Did you understand them to be the coroner's officer? Or you
No.
just know it was somebody there, or perhaps
Yes.
more than one person?
It was one lady in particular.
That,
I
yes,
can't remember her role though.
Not to
but
worry.
yeah.
That's extremely helpful. The inquest itself, can you tell us a little bit about your experience of that, the actual hearing itself?
It was very short. The policeman that attended on the evening that my uncle passed away, he was there and read his sort of statement as such, as evidence. And then the coroner just said that it was, well, actually on the certificate it's written that he killed himself, not suicide or took his own life. He killed himself by hanging. But yeah, very short. Didn't go on for very long.
And did you, as family members, ask any questions during that inquest?
I provided a statement. So before that day, they did contact me and said, would you like to write a statement about your uncle, what he used to like, what sort of person he was? So that was read out as well. But that was mainly it.
And there was no questions asked by family members during the hearing itself?
No, we were all very emotional, and I think what I'd wrote in the statement was enough. I think it covered everything we wanted to say.
Thank you. Now, we're going to just quickly go through each of the recommendations set out in your witness statement.
Yes.
And I will ask you if you'd like to say anything further about them or how they impacted on Keith's care and treatment. It may well be that you feel that we've covered them sufficiently already,
Yes.
but I would like to make sure you have an opportunity to say everything that you would like to say in respect
Yes.
of those. Amanda, please can we have paragraph 46 on the screen? That's at page 12. And so we've looked at this before, but this is the final part of your statement, which records your reflections.
Yes.
And at paragraph 46, you express that it is essential for services to make sure that family members are aware of the care plan in place and that a family support network is used
Yes.
as a tool to ensure a patient's safety. beyond what you've said already, is there anything further you'd like to add in relation to that?
Just to acknowledge the background of the patient as well, because he was known to mental health services since 2000. There was no acknowledgement of that.
Thank you. And so you're referring to the breakdowns that you
Yes.
had set out in your statement
Yes.
and his diagnosis of endogenous depression.
Yes.
And that, am I understanding correctly, you feel that that wasn't something that, from the records you've seen, that was understood or appreciated as part of
That's correct. Yes.
the picture?
Yes.
Thank you. And then at paragraph 47, you say that staff should be trained in how to appropriately talk to patients and their families. And again, is there anything you would like to add in relation to that we haven't covered already?
It's just that. It's just the basic training. You shouldn't even really need training, but, you know, showing empathy, the way you approach patients and their families, and just more understanding of the individual.
Yes. And on the final page, if you turn over to page 13, you say that you do not want to see other families lose their loved ones in the way that I have lost my uncle, and I hope that the system can change so that patients are provided with adequate support and treatment in the future. Is there anything further that you would wish to add at this point to what you've said already in your evidence?
No, I think that sort of summarises how I feel. Yes.
Thank you, Sam. I don't have any further questions for you at this stage. Chair, do you have any questions?
No.
Amanda, can we please have the photograph of Keith on screen? We will now show a photograph of your Uncle Keith. Sam, we will now have a 10-minute break to see if there are any further questions. If there aren't any, that concludes your evidence and you will be free to leave. Thank you again for the evidence you've given today. We will be returning at 2 p.m, I understand.
Thank you very much
Thank
indeed
you.
for coming and for giving us your evidence. I'm very
Thank you.
Thank you.